Go.
Hello, welcome everyone to the first Chief Delegates AMA. My name is Randall. We have Mr. Lovejoy, John, Jesse, and Chris here. We are waiting for Aaron to drop in as well. Hello everyone, and we are very excited to have you guys here. So I'm not one of the best MCs, so kindly forgive me if I don't do such a great job. But basically, the goal here is to try to reach out to the community to see if we can get the community to interact with us and tell us what is important to them, and for us to interact and see what we can do to benefit the EOS community as a whole.
Awesome.
Did a great job, Randall.
Yeah,
Thank
well
you.
said.
Thank you.
Does anyone else want to add anything to that? Chris, Jesse, John?
I'm happy to jump into questions.
Cool.
Yeah.
And you can put
Fire
your
away.
questions in the stream chat. If you have questions, if it's like really slow and nobody's asking questions, we can just talk in the main room, I think. But yeah, how's everyone doing? Been a wild week.
Good. I think potentially like to ask some questions of the viewers. Maybe turn it around if we don't have any questions. So,
Well, the first question here is from Tarius Crypto Lions. What are the plans for DAO for bees?
no, we had an AMA this morning. The bees had an AMA.
Oh,
earlier.
okay, right, yeah. Good times.
My second AMA today.
Oh, okay, shit.
Where was that question asked?
It's in the stream-chat channel.
Oh, I see it. Okay, cool.
Ah.
I'm there now.
Okay, so the first question was from M Bamsey. So I'd like to
Yeah,
answer
that was
first.
me. That was responding to me, saying everyone here. Above that, though, Taras says, do we have some knowledge about similar initiatives? But I guess that covers the bees. And Jesse's like, better watch my AMA.
I got a question then for Randall. How's EOS support going?
Everything is going well. So basically, right now what we are doing is trying to translate
I guess that covers the
majority of the articles into different languages. We have 6 languages now. We're trying to get Italian on board, but the gentleman who was supposed to help us, he doesn't want to show his face, so that one fell through. We are trying to get Turkish and Vietnamese translators and support so that we can start thinking about how we can venture into that market and help the users there. Because with EOS support, our main goal is once we have a person who can help that language, we want to then start to build the initiative of educating people in that language, right? So if let's say it's Russian speaking language, Russian speakers, basically we will start to go to other countries that speaks Russian, and we try to educate them about EOS and help the users on board and create wallets for some of them and answer their questions if they have any questions. So we are looking for Turkish and Vietnamese experts who can join us so that we can expand into that market as well. Another thing that we are doing right now is we just finished our smart contract, but right now I'm building the reward system so that this month we can actually use the reward system. Last month we basically gave everyone some EOS for showing up, and some people did a lot more work than others, but we gave everyone equal pay, or I would say equal rewards. I wouldn't use the word pay, equal amount of rewards. Um, but we want to implement the algorithm so that people who are putting in a lot more effort can benefit from their hard work. So basically, that's what we are doing.
Sounds good. Sounds exciting. How about you, Jesse? What's new in EOSBs? I know you did AMA before, but if we could get a brief rundown.
Sure. First, I'll kind of piggyback off what Randall was saying. I feel like EOSBs can help with the first initiative that he was talking about, finding people in other languages. Like, for example, Turkish and Vietnamese. I'm going to suggest a couple of IBs to also join EOS support. I'm kind of vetted people already, and hopefully we can do that across other languages, and we can just work together to build these language communities, because we definitely need both sides, in an attraction kind of promoting side and a support side. And so yeah, we'll be working with EOS support long term for that. I just want to also just say thank you to everyone who helped us out on Pomelo, and for the EOS Nation team and the EOS Network Foundation for supplying matching funds. Just very grateful for the support there. We're coming out with a newsletter. Each hive is coming out with a newsletter at the end of the month that goes into the work that each hive is doing. Me personally, in the global hive, I am working on, I teased it in the AMA, we're working on a new model, a new incentive model, and I'm working with the Haifa DAO team to potentially create our own DAO. And so we've been paying bees for about a month, and we have, I've identified certain kind of things that are inefficient, things I don't like, problems. And I did an interview with Nova Crypto coming out on December 9th. We're going to go into detail on this, the specifics of this new model. So that's kind of, yeah, what I've been working on.
Awesome. Lovejoy, what are you up to?
Hey everybody. Yeah, it's been a wacky couple of weeks, to be honest. I've just been pulled into some other projects, and really heads down there. I was pretty inspired by our last talk with all the delegates, where we were able to all sit down with all 35 of us and talk about some possibility for public works, and a lot of great ideas came out of that. I'm interested in getting more community feedback on how we can kind of recirculate some of this EOS to put the community to work, getting stuff done on a day-to-day that needs to get done. And yeah, there's just like a lot of small tasks that I think people notice that need to be worked on, but that we don't necessarily have the project like infrastructure. And there's been a lot of talk about HiFiDAO from an OpEx standpoint, incorporating some sort of like roles and day-to-day operations type stuff into Eden. And it's something I know Chris and I have talked a lot about, creating some sort of like your eyes, Chris, like just creating some sort of a structure that can allow us to keep working even between and through the different Eden delegations. So Yeah, nothing too concrete to report. I sent the lion's share of my delegate rewards so far to the bees to support and to the Violet Garden. And the rest of it I'm going to try to use for the community public works, I'm calling it. So.
Oh, awesome! I still haven't checked my messages yet, but that's great. I'm sure me and Jesse will both take it a long way, as far as we can.
Thank you, love you.
Totally.
Last but not least, Chris, did you wanna?
Sure. Let's see. Big things coming out. So this would be good in terms of this venue and fresh ears. We're looking to, as we'll put out an RFP, request for proposals for Eden members to basically submit a bid to take care of, to kind of design, build, and maintain the Eden EOS website. So right now we've got edeneos.org site is the current site. So we're going to get that basically, we kind of want to, right now Ray's been taking care of that for us. And so we're going to open it up to the entire Eden community to submit proposals to take that on. And that'll be a paid task. And so we're just refining the RFP document. It'll be just a Google Doc, really easy. We'll put it up in the Eden members chat and then look to basically hire someone for that role. And the idea kind of takes off of what Brandon was just talking about. And it's basically Eden has assets that exist outside of each respective election. And so we want to have an attempt at continuity of the maintenance of those assets that don't just rely on an individual election to take place and all of a sudden everything gets handed over to new people and they redesign the website and redo it. They could choose to. Chief delegates have the authority to then maybe do that if they wish, but they may not want to. I mean, when you're submitting yourself and going through an election process, you may not have in the back of your mind, am I going to have to take care of the website, right? You have a proposal perhaps that you're probably working towards, or a project or whatever it is. These organizational entities or assets is better, need to be considered, and then something that can transition between elections. So that's coming. Stay tuned. And if you want to participate, you're not an Eden member and you want to actually have a chance to get that job, then another reason to join Eden, because we're creating an internal economy to keep kind of tasks and money flowing within the Eden membership. So that's something to speak to that I've been working on. And I think, John, yeah, you're actually last but not least. How's Violet Garden going?
Yeah, good so far. I just minted the first couple NFTs. So I'm just building out the UI so that anyone can build a NFT if they're the last bidder on a post and it's past the expiry. So that's cool. I've also added the link off feature. So essentially, if you don't want to deal with the anchor pop-up every single time you want to do a bid, you can do a special link off against your account, which basically creates a new permission against your EOS account that the browser then can use, and that permission's only able to sort of bid and withdraw your VIO tokens from escrow. And so that basically means you can just hit the bid button, no pop-up comes up at all, and the transaction just goes through instantly. So it's a much nicer experience, and it's free CPU and net as well. That it won't bill you for that either. So another feature I want to work on is just free transactions across the whole app. So essentially, behind the scenes, it's going to be using the same technology that Greymass is with Greymass Fuel. It's just going to be Violet Garden Fuel in a sense. So yeah, all transactions will be free, and I think that'll be a much nicer user experience. But yeah, that's pretty much it from me.
Awesome.
How's it deal with trying to get everyone in Eden free CPUs, and that's still
Yeah, I think we've a chat with Aaron. That there's a few ways of skinning the cat, but I think the easiest win, the quickest way of doing it would just be to modify Greymass Fuel itself. So rather than make sort of Eden Fuel and have a server that does that, we just create a deal with Greymass and say, hey, if this account is an Eden member, put it through Greymass Fuel and pay for it, and then add it to our bill, or whatever it might be, take it from this pool of EOS to pay for the CPU and stuff used. I guess the hardest part would just be a bit of rate limiting. Like, we want to be generous, but we don't want to be so generous that someone can just, do it all day, constantly kind of thing, and drain the funds. So probably a limited amount of person per day, and for 99% of users, that's going to be more than enough to do what they want to do throughout their EOS journey. So yeah, we'll have to get on to Aaron about that and go further into the details. But given that I've already developed, my own version of it, it shouldn't be too hard to adopt on grey mass fuel. It's just that rate limiting thing I think would be the hardest part.
I see one question in the chat from Dogman. Is there a recording from the Eden delegate meeting with all the delegates? That was like, I guess a week and a half ago. I don't recall if there was a recording of that.
Oh, from the big group of all the delegates.
Mm-hmm.
That's a great question.
I do recall that there was a recording. Lenny, I believe, talk to Lenny. I think he has the recording.
Yeah, I'll ping him and see. Then maybe we can put it up here.
Yeah,
Don't be shy, everybody. If you got some questions, you can ask us anything. It's an AMA. Or AUA. Sorry.
AUA?
Us.
Ask us anything.
Yeah.
Oh.
This
sure.
It was also pretty silent in the EOSB's AMA.
Everyone's so shy. So I guess
People
that
are
means
just
doing a good job.
Shocked.
Not a lot of curiosity.
I think everyone's like half under a rock waiting to see how events unfold in the next couple of weeks.
Here's a question. What actions will be taken to find and attract young programming specialists to develop programs on the EOS blockchain?
I'd say
Good question.
the ENF would make the biggest dent in making that happen. I think they've got those working groups and stuff, where they're trying to, increase developer experience. It's sort of like the chicken and egg situation, because a lot of programmers want to program on chains that already have the DeFi apps and sort of have the industry standard. Chains like Ethereum have a lot more community support, and if you're trying to build something, chances are there's 1,000 other developers that have already built it, so you can just use their code. Whereas on EOSIO, it's a bit different. Yeah, probably best seeing what ENF is doing. I don't think we're taking many actions ourselves on making programming dApps on the EOS blockchain much more attractive. I could be wrong.
I think generally, it's a good answer. And also not so much something that we as chief delegates can do, but just generally speaking, I think the Helios initiative will probably help bring some developer or potential developer interest back into the space, just due to the fact that there's capital that will be deployed into the ecosystem to build stuff. So we're going to need people to build it.
Isn't that primarily just businesses, though?
Aaron.
Yes.
Sorry, my calendar said 6 o'clock, so I really thought I had a half hour still.
Da, 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 da. I knew it.
Yeah.
It was the time gremlins got you.
Yeah.
Well, you're here. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's true, but businesses need developers to develop their products. Right. So I think the idea of just how are we going to entice new developers to come to the ecosystem, it's kind of hand in hand, I suppose.
Yeah. It's really both, and we need the tooling for those developers as they come in, and those developers need to come in with their ideas that can fund or warrant receiving funding for their initiatives. We have the public good side and the business side, both equally important.
I'll answer the question from Doug Man that just came through, and then we can ask Aaron what he's been doing and what's new in the world of grey mass as well.
Sure.
Is there any timeline for bidding on comments in Violet Garden? It's on the to-do list. I've got a timeline. I guess not. There's just, so many other things that I want to get going. But before that, I imagine it will go public before we're do bidding on comments. That could change. I guess you're a fan of that feature then? Yeah. Aaron, what's new in the world of grey mass?
We just put like in general.
Yeah, in general, we also had a question about fuel catering for Eden members as well. I'm not sure if you heard me speak about that, but we're talking about like rate limiting and stuff like that. But yeah, give us the rundown on grey mass first. What's new, or what's new with you, and what's new with grey mass?
Well, we put out an update on the forums yesterday that kind of outlined where a couple things are at. Um, like the Android version of Anchor that we're rewriting some parts for, and hopefully we'll have a release for soon. But we're setting a lot of stuff aside for the next month or so, maybe 6 weeks, to really focus in on these foundation working or research papers and the working groups. We're kind of going all hands on deck to build to research some of this stuff. There's no building involved. Um, but really taking a hard look at what exists in this ecosystem today, kind of what's missing from the ecosystem. We started looking out at other blockchain ecosystems, whether it's Ethereum or Solana or, you name it, and what they're doing well, and, what we can learn from that. So the number of solid proposals that we think we're going to write as part of that, and be publishing those early next year. So yeah, I mean, that's where all of our attention's going into right now. Hopefully some good standards and some good open source public goods will come out of those working groups, and solve a lot of the problems that developers face today. So as for fuel, I mean, yeah, we've got the engine. We have that open source version that we publish that essentially is what fuel runs, just without the business logic. Um, we, I mean, there's a lot of business logic we ripped out of it that can do fancy things like buy RAM for people and propose fees. And I mean, that stuff's all designed in the protocols for resource providers, but um, that simple demo doesn't do it justice. I don't know.
Cool. So, do you see much development expense with adding Eden members and sort of giving them free transactions, and then I guess tallying the cost of those transactions to then bill to Eden? Or
I mean, there's probably a day's worth of work just to get some sort of reporting in for that. Um, I don't know what kind of abuses we could expect. Like, I don't really have. I mean, I suppose, since this is a reputation platform, we're maybe not as concerned with that. You have to keep in mind, for the last year or two, however long we've been running Fuel, it's primarily been, how are people going to abuse this? So that's going to be my first question. Um,
yeah,
is
well, we're thinking about just the base rate limit. So if they spend any more than a certain threshold of CPU in the past 24 hours or net,
Yeah,
then it won't,
yeah. I mean,
be a
that
thing.
we can set rules like that fairly easily. That's what we did for the Eden contracts themselves during the election. We just bumped up the amount of uh, CPU each user gets per day when they're interacting with that. We did that with Pomelo as well, so that way people wouldn't run into issues as they were trying to donate to projects. Um, I think we might be able to do it with just people who are in as Eden members, and allocate a individual budget for those. It would just at this point have to be by hand. Like, that I think would be the most painful part, is just every time there's a new Eden member, somebody'd have to let me know so I could update it. We don't have any sort of mechanics to read that table and update it. I suppose that would take maybe another day or so.
Well,
I
if,
know that
if we could read the table and a couple RPC requests, would that suffice?
potentially. Um, I'm just fearful of shifting any attention away right now from the overwhelming amount of work in the working groups right now.
Yeah, if only there was another development company that also knew how grey mass fuel worked, that already
Right?
implemented their own version that could help you out. Shame,
Right?
shame. Actually, isn't it written? It's not written in TypeScript, is it? Did you say it was in Go for?
No, it's in TypeScript.
Ah, shit.
Yeah, I
All
mean
right.
that
We can
open
talk more
source
about
group.
the technical
Yeah.
sides of it later then. But okay. Well, that's our status update on fuel for Eden then.
All right. Yeah, let's talk about that.
I see another
Should we?
question in
Oh,
the
yeah, go on,
stream
Jesse.
chat. Aaron wondering how you think about other EOSIO public chains with respect to ENF.
I mean, they're fully being considered. Um, I have, as kind of leading of this, I have full visibility on like kind of everything everybody's exploring right now. And I think for the first time today, I noticed one thing that might not be applicable to other chains out of, I don't know, 40 or 50 potential proposals, all of which could benefit any chain. Um, there's a pretty big focus on things being generic. Um, like we're talking about things like development toolkits for people that are building dApps, and those aren't EOS development kits. I mean, that's not even a thing. These are toolkits for anybody that's building on the EOSIO platform. So I think all of the chains should be excited. I would encourage any of them that I haven't reached out to reach out to me just to make sure that that connection is made and I can collect feedback from other chains. Or there's the Discord channels here in like right below this voice chat right now. Join those, give feedback, participate. The people that are in these groups are from BPs and other types of organizations that work on all these other chains. So, we're not, well, EOS may be footing the bill initially to make this happen now because we don't have any time to wait. Um, it certainly isn't, we're not looking to build things that we're like, ooh, this is mine. It's, we're building it because EOS needs it and everyone else needs it too.
There's another question. I think this is for also Aaron and maybe John. Do you have any idea on how to put the entire infrastructure built on the EOS blockchain in one application, an analog of the Steam application for games or the Play Market on Google?
Kind of.
Yeah, Aaron, did you want to take that?
Yeah. Um, Something we've been talking about internally on the Grey Mass team for a while now is the desire to have something that we call the Dap Gallery, which is just, it's the name that stuck. It's kind of bad. It doesn't really describe it. But what it is it's a place where you can go and you can find things to do on EOS, or EOSIO blockchains in general. This is, again, a project that, if proposed, could work anywhere. Um, and it's kind of like Steam in that Steam is a discovery platform. You use it to find video games and then you use it to play games, or you use it to connect with friends. There's a few social features, but I doubt the first version of this would be a part of that. Maybe I could link to the EOS community forums and this Discord and stuff. Um, but I think that there's a decent amount of work that needs to be done to create a decentralized place for all that information to exist. You know, Violet Garden, for example, they would need to submit like a listing of this is my app, this is what you can expect of my app. Maybe this is the source, and maybe it could be audited. Maybe some trust could be built in this repository of information. And then once that exists, we can build these Steam-like interfaces where it's like a catalog of here's all the cool things you can do. I definitely think that's a thing that we should be pursuing. We just need to make sure that it's done in a way that it's not exclusive to one blockchain or one application for that matter.
Cool.
Hot.
Any questions? Anyone want to unmute their mic and ask a question in voice?
There was a question in the YouTube. Let me find it. I can. Ola Art says, is the Eden community working on getting any partnerships to EOS? Wax is doing a great job in attracting partnerships. I hope EOS can do the same. I said specifically, you mean commercial partnerships? They said, for example, Wax partners with Hot Wheels recently for their NFTs. Another future Wax partner will be with Sony. They're going to sell Spider-Man NFTs and so forth. I feel like we're kind of behind the realm on that, but I also don't know if that's Eden's domain. But anyone want to speak to that?
Well, what was the question? Was Eden partner with EOS? Because I don't know, EOS is a blockchain, isn't it? Like technically you could partner with ENF maybe, but EOS itself, like it's like partnering with Bitcoin. I guess it's different with Wax because they got aren't they like a centralized for-profit thing? Wax? I don't actually know.
Yeah, they have a core team that at least from my perspective as a VP, they coordinate a lot of that stuff. So EOS not having a core team for the last 3.5 years hasn't seen that sort of partnership opportunity because there's no one there facilitating it. Both Helios and the foundation could act in that regard to bring on major partners like this. But I think first we need something to partner with or partner for. The reason all these groups are coming to Wax right now is because there's been such an emphasis put on NFTs, and that's what these partnerships are about. So EOS has the same stack. It's just the community isn't quite as not the community, but the usage of NFTs on EOS isn't as strong.
And this may not be like a standard partnership, but I'm trying to head getting Haifa DAO. They have an open source DAO software built on Telos. They are on Pomelo to port it into EOS. And I'm trying to use my B network to promote them. And I'm also speaking with the team members to try to get them so any EOS application can use their DAO software.
I think we've talked about this before, but I mean, if we can, as Eden members, those of us that are, if we can prove that this system of governance works and can produce meaningful activity on chain, Eden could become the killer DApp for EOS. Like, if other local communities that aren't even necessarily blockchain related want to use this framework to deploy themselves in a self-governed way, that's possible. And that's a unique offering right now that EOS has. Other chains could adopt it as well, but it exists here today. And if we can prove that this system works, then hopefully others will adopt it as well.
I think
There's
there's
another
a
question.
yeah. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Hi guys, I'm working on developing ways to distribute GreyMass account links. Aaron Cox, do you know approximately how much accounts would cost for Eden members if we could order them in bulk?
No. I mean, I can tell, like, I would even have to look to know how much it costs us to create an account at this point. And then it would be based on that cost at that time, essentially. I mean, with the EOS prices fluctuating, the cost is moving, so it's hard to really give an estimate until we have that system live. I could say $1 now, but if the price doubles, then it's going to be $2 when it's live.
That's why I want you to commit now.
Right?
Trying to hedge.
Get in early.
Yeah, it also depends on your use case, Chuck. Maybe you can elaborate on what you plan on doing. Like, are you just going to post the links in like a forum somewhere, or are you going to give it out to people that you know, or things like that? There's plenty of ways that you can sort of approach it. Maybe buying the RAM in bulk, so you know how much you got to play with, would be the answer. Be good to learn a bit more about the situation you're in. There's also another question for Aaron. Aaron, Eden would need to enable different election templates. Not all communities want the same political playoff structure. Should have options on creation. I don't know. I feel like if you don't have that, then you're just another DAO. Like, isn't that what makes Eden the same political playoff structure? Like, it's not saying that you can't have another DAO. Like, go ahead, do what you want, but there's only so far you can fork away from this before you can really call it Eden anymore.
Yeah, it's more.
And again, you know, sorry, go on.
No, I was just saying it's more than just a template. It would require some rewriting of how the contracts actually work, which I don't think any of us have necessarily dove too deep into.
Yeah, they're I imagine they're well written, but they're definitely not, you know, simple. There's definitely complex parts of it as well. And then again, you know, with these new templates or whatever, still uphold the same, you know, values of Eden. Like, you know, Eden is structured in a way for a lot of, you know, good reasons. So either you would have to stay in line with that, otherwise, again, it's not really Eden. Few more
And
questions.
the Clarion team, they're writing open source software, so anyone can take it and modify the political playoff rules. And so I think just the fact that it's open source would enable that inherently.
Yeah, anyone can fork it.
Looks like another question for Aaron. Or did we just do that one? No.
Yeah, we did.
To enable.
Yeah,
we did. I'm not paying attention.
Estimate EOS, maybe someone. Chuck, you can just look up the price, well, the cost for creating an account in RAM, and then just look up the price of RAM with some, you know, calculator to sort that out. But again, you should probably get counsel on your use case so you don't run into the X and Y problem as well. That's important.
I think if I remember correctly, Chuck was describing his use case in the full delegates meeting. He wants to make, and Chuck, forgive me if I'm paraphrasing you, but I believe he said that he wants to put like links to accounts on a business card and distribute it to educational institutions, stuff like that, like a business card with an EOS account on it.
I feel like it would be fairly expensive to uniquely print each business card, though, wouldn't it? It's been a while since I've dealt with print media.
Well, it wouldn't have to necessarily be unique. Yeah, I don't know. It depends if you had like an API in front of it that had a sort of voucher system, and you know, you didn't even have all the RAM or anything reserved, you know, for it, and you're just, you know, kind of winging it, because you can give out 100 cards and only 10 get redeemed anyway. apparently Chuck can't unmute himself. Should we let him unmute and he can elaborate, or? I remember there being some sort of initiative about running through all the election videos and running down the promises made by each elected delegate on Eden for accountability and all. How is that going? Do we know who suggested that idea?
I think Lenny is working with the delegates for them to create a Notion portal so that each person can document how things are going. I think the last time that they had discussions, that's where it was going. But I don't know if anyone is actually spearheading the effort.
Yeah, it might have just got something that got added to the wish list and was never fulfilled. Feel free of doing it yourself if you want to. Was Chuck gonna unmute himself, or is he still here? Oh yeah, Chuck, you here? I can see that he's not muted, but I'm not saying anything. Alright, we'll wait for Chuck to come back to us. Nowadays, various blockchain projects are introducing change.
We lose John.
Maybe. I guess I'll read the question from Nubel. Nowadays, various blockchain projects are introducing changes in the code with deflationary mechanisms in order to increase investor interest. Have you thought about changes that could also affect investor interest in order to increase the price of the EOS token? I have not.
There's been some talk around mechanisms like some of the on-chain system fees, like when we're talking about name bids or RAM or power-up fees or that kind of thing. Right now they're going to token holders, which seems to be what token holders desire. But there have been conversations about potentially burning those as well, so that way it would create downward pressure. I don't know if it would equal inflation and actually cause it to be deflationary, but that would be a large ask, I think, for the community. I don't know. I haven't seen anything that specifically gains traction in reducing the supply. I think a lot of people looked at the token burn that happened a couple years ago, and it had zero impact on the price, and took that as a sign at that time that burning tokens didn't help. So,
Oh, hang on though. Those tokens weren't even in circulation, though, were they?
no, I mean, I'm not arguing one way or another. I'm just kind of citing discussions that have happened.
Yeah. Well, I would say like they were burnt, but they weren't burnt. If they're not in circulation, it doesn't really matter. It's the same. We can mint 10 billion EOS tokens. It's not going to do anything unless we put it into circulation.
True. We just can't burn tokens that are other people's that are in circulation.
Yeah, well, we gotta convince people to either voluntarily do it or create systems where it is automatically done.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
like again, like one thing we're doing in Violet Garden is that on Atomic you can get the market fee. So I'm setting a 6% market fee on the NFTs, like for secondary sales, and then every EOS that's collected immediately goes to buy the VIO tokens, and then the VIO tokens get burnt. So that'd be another method of making it deflationary as well. That's as an example.
It's
Yeah,
perhaps another area for the Eden smart contract as well. In addition to introducing tariffs on EOS being spent outside the community, there could be like a burn mechanism there, like a small cost, and then a slight burn. I mean, it's voluntary Eden bylaw territory, but it could be interesting, especially when we have several Edens on board.
absolutely. I mean, I think there could be proposals that do create mechanisms that burn tokens and reduce the supply. I just don't think any of them are on the table right now. I think if somebody came up with a brilliant idea on like something that added value to the network that the network could provide, um, that whatever was paid for that feature could arguably either go to token holders through something like Rex, or it could be burned. So it'll be easier to apply burning to a new system than it will be to take a system that exists and is currently distributing tokens to token holders and then flip that to be burning instead. Some people bought EOS because they want those returns based on, those network fees. Eden
Yeah,
is certainly a good one.
I think burning could be done on network level, but I'd be hesitant in entertaining the idea on a Eden level, given how small we are. I think every EOS we get, we should, reinvest into buying stuff ourselves. Like the impact that we're going to have on the EOS price as Eden in its current size would be minuscule. We'd be more shooting ourselves in the foot if we can use that EOS for, other things like paying for development and things here and there.
Yeah. I was going to ask, is that a topic you guys talked about at all on this? Was the idea of trying to create a economy within Eden of members?
Well, yeah, we briefly touched on the RFP thing again, where we want to sort of hire internally, and then again, there's the sort of Violet Garden tokens on top of that as well. That sort of complements the Eden economy too, given that the only people that get the free Violet tokens are Eden members.
And I don't know if D-Courts is on the call, but he was the one person that kind of stepped up when we had the all delegate meeting to volunteer to help with working on some sort of public works project for Eden members. But I know he also has a Pomelo grant pitch up, which covers a lot of the same territory, and he didn't want to pitch that during the delegate meeting, but it is. I've looked at it since. It's pretty interesting. I'd like to see a lot more of those community initiatives for how we can circulate value. I'm really interested in how we can use NFTs internally to just there's a lot of fun stuff we can do to make people just be more engaged in the community and make them feel like it's a enjoyable place to hang around and work on projects with each other. I mean, merit badge type stuff, but gamification and then just economic incentives. I'd be really curious if anyone here has additional ideas on that direction. Or if Aaron, you've got any additional thoughts since you brought it back up.
Yeah, I mean, I think my big desire is I just want to see it happening. Like I want to be able to put money towards this type of stuff. I personally just haven't had the time to sit and identify those things that could really benefit Eden as a group. So it's a matter like I really feel like, especially because so many things have just happened in the last couple of months, that we need some sort of support staff or something that can really focus. Like, they're getting paid to work administratively for Eden. Um, I know when I ran on Eden, like I didn't know when Pomelo was coming out. Like, there was no sense of, oh, maybe there'll be a pitch and it'll be successful. I didn't know if it was going to launch next year. Um, the working groups were not a thing. Helios was not a thing. Like, there's just so much that's happened in this short amount of time that it's not in a bad way, but it's kind of sucked some of the air out of the room for Eden to be able to do some of this stuff. Um, and Eden still can do some of this stuff, but since a lot of us are being pulled in different directions, it's a matter of like, okay, maybe even though we are the elected ones with the budgets right now, we can still build some sort of structure that lets us hire people to help and research these things and figure out how we create this internal economy and budgets maybe or something.
Absolutely. Yeah, empowering other people to work on these projects would be really key, I think, right now.
Yeah.
I feel like I might have to stay on this pulse and try to see what I can do to create some structure here, but I'm one of the people that's also going to need help, so it's like, yeah, we're going to figure it out as we go.
Yeah. And if all of these other things hadn't happened, I'd probably be in there like trying to help organization building wise. But right now, I think my best use, like I'm putting as much as I can into the Eden side of what I ran on, and then the next most important thing I can do is participate in the foundation's working groups. I really think that that is going to set EOS's trajectory and EOSIO's trajectory for years to come. We have a lot of people who have ideas of what this needs, and we've watched people leave, like coworkers, basically, because these things didn't exist. So it's there's so much to do, including this in Eden and this structure and making sure that this experiment is successful. Because, like I said a while ago, this if we can prove that this process works, good people get elected, good people can allocate funding and help govern. Like this is a killer DApp.
Yeah, it feels a little bit like we're working on a chessboard, and then
Yeah.
every move changes the entire situation of the game. So we're like, oh, okay, now now where would we fit?
So I think we spoke about this earlier. If we can get the high fit guys, right? Then we can get the organizational part in place, because I see this a little bit differently in that we cannot create bureaucracy upon bureaucracy upon bureaucracy with no outcome, because then it's like we're just defeating the purpose of what we are doing. The purpose is we want to give people jobs. We want to create jobs. So for us to do that, we have to make sure that this holacracy works, right? And we already know how this is, right? Chris, Joshua, during the trial elections, they came up with this. Everyone loved it. So now, if we can get the hyphy guys who have already done the research on it to give us the organizational aspect of it, so we can have the rules, so we can follow the rules of the holacracy properly, then basically we can now have different arms, like the CMO arm with different marketing groups, different new support groups, different projects in between, and then we can all collaborate on projects, and then we can pay people in doing it. For example, for EU support, we hire ED members, right? So we are always looking for people who are committed and ready to translate, ready to work for us as developers, to help with the thinking process, right? So basically, there are people there, and they cannot start a project by themselves. But if we have the organizational structure and we have the projects, now people can join those projects and they can get some rewards or some sort of payments, which is meaningful, and that will create the economy that we are looking at or we are looking for.
Kind of a
Wasn't
counter.
wasn't Pomelo bringing out a jobs board?
No.
I believe that they was bringing it out as sort of a later edition. Or was that not correct? I did. So I saw when I originally spoke about because it was sort of I was trying to run a sort of project similar, wasn't I? Trying to my first when I first run for that option of obviously running for the election, and my first idea was to get a jobs board and etc. And that I was told that Pomelo would be doing that, and that not initially in the first phase, but the next release. So I just thought I'd mention it because I'm sure if it is being done, that would be very useful.
Yeah. So Mel, are you talking about the crowdsourcing platform where you can
Yeah,
people
that's
put?
right. It's a crowd. It's basically like Fiverr or people per hour, where you can have resources, and then you can obviously allocate resources out, and you can rate them how good they are, etc. And I thought that was a very good, useful way of allocating resources to tasks that we've and projects that we've got.
Yeah. So I have a question. If we were to create something like that, how can we make it like a public good? Because if we can make it a public good, that's something that I've been thinking about myself. If no one is willing to take on that initiative, it's
Yeah,
something that
I would have run with that personally, but that's the reason I didn't, because I thought Pomelo was going to be introducing that, because we do need that.
Mhm.
So it's probably a bit late now.
My feeling, though, is that we need an Eden-specific job board, that is
Yeah.
dedicated to this community and, can kind of bring some cohesion to the projects we're working on. I think a lot of the answers we seek are in the DAO model.
Would
learning
the job board be like Fiverr, where it's project based, or would it be like position sort of salary style, where you're kind of in the role ongoing?
I was thinking, task and project based. So it didn't have to be a complete project, but tasks as well, could be anything. And then you could just say, and then people could bid for them, and then obviously they've got star ratings as well to say if they've done previous work and then you're happy with it, they get 5 stars, and then you go for the lowest price, someone who's already in the community. So that it works. I think that would be a really great solution.
That's another aspect of the way DAO does jobs and roles is you can even propose a role just as a member of the community, and then depending on how you want to run it, and I don't know how this dovetails exactly with our fractal democracy model, but the way they do it is, I could propose a role that I see a need for within the community and set even like a rate for that role, and then other people in the community would go and look, and it's reputational based, so they'd go and look and see, oh yeah, that's a good role, that's a good idea, and then vote on that, and the ones that get voted on by a certain threshold become actual funded roles within the community. So this is why I can't articulate it as well as they do, but this is why I think a lot of us keep bringing up DAOs, because they've really thought about the fine inner workings of a lot of this stuff and how to set it up. And it's so granular, you can kind of set the parameters however you want. Like So I think we can make it all sync pretty nicely with the fractal democracy model, or at least not
Yeah.
make
So
it. Yeah.
so
As a counter,
Lovejoy, I think Aaron is willing to contribute to us having those guys come and just talk to us, show us how this is gonna work, and if it's meaningful, he's willing to contribute to that. So I think you just have to make a reservation and maybe have them educate us. Educate us a little bit on the process, and maybe we can test it out.
Yeah, I'm all about it.
So I'm in talks with them right now, but I do want to make a comment. I just get the feeling by the way we're describing Haifa that like they have all the answers, but like Lovejoy was saying, it's very granular. So there's a lot of like, if we go with Haifa, there's a lot of decisions we're gonna have to make like as an Eden community. Like there's gonna
Mhm.
it's gonna be very tough. I can already imagine. Um,
yeah,
So, don't expect an easy road with Haifa. Yes, they figured a lot of things out, but there's still a ton of things that we're gonna have to figure out ourselves. That's number one. And um, the bees are working on their own Haifa DAO, and um, I'm I have like an idea to propose, perhaps in the Eden in our chief delegates meeting later this week is a more appropriate venue to propose it. But I am currently in talks with them, and I can imagine a scenario where we can kind of not combine, but um, use the relationships I'm making with EOSBs with Haifa, and kind of put Eden in there somehow. And I do have some ideas for that. So I can certainly I'm already taking the lead on that. So I think I can represent Eden as well.
I will say with what Randall started with about adding bureaucracy on top of bureaucracy, that feels like what we're doing by adding HyphaDAO on top of Eden. It is multiple layers on top of each other that we're only going to discover whether or not they conflict in some way if we try to use it.
Mhm.
And we don't really have a timeline on how quickly we could do that. Like if we focused on that, it may be that it's set up right before we're done and the next election begins. And I think what I would prefer at this point is we just move without it and do things. I don't know if we should wait to accomplish things until we have this structure in place. I do think it is probably a good idea, but it's waiting for something is what we've done in EOS for years. And now it's just time to grab the bull by the horns and actually do things.
Yeah, and
So
I'm not
I can
proposing.
comment on the timeline because I've spoken to them. Yeah, Aaron, it's going to be after our current term, Q2
Yeah.
2022. And so, just like in the and what Dan says about proposing, one group proposing and another group executing, perhaps we can, at the end of our term, at least set up the relationships. I'm not saying to
Yeah.
stop, like we shouldn't stop doing anything. We could do both. But I totally understand where you're coming from with bureaucracy on bureaucracy. That's something that we're gonna have to really keep in front of our mind if we want to implement this.
Yeah, and
Lovejoy, can I go?
yeah, go
Can I
ahead.
go quickly then? Okay. So my take is this: Eden is a system in itself that can allow for a community to organize. Right within it, we are trying to find ways to allow each member to have a role, so that the system in itself is overlapping. Right. So you can have one person who's doing marketing, but they can also be helping the development group. They can be in two, three um, different arms, right? That is something that we started to do. And I think Joshua brought up a very good point last time. There are some rules to the holacracy. So we have to agree to the rules of engagement, right? And I think we have the talent to be able to do this, bootstrap this by ourselves. But we have to have some commitment from the, the people who are going to lead us, right? And then we have to discuss with Dan to make sure that he's okay with these rules if it fits um, his vision of how fractal democracy is supposed to be, right? Once we do that, he's already okay with holacracy when we first talked about it. So then we can just implement those, and hopefully we can start doing some of the things that we want to do, right? Because I feel like if we decide to wait, then we will never get anywhere. But if we start working on things aggressively by choosing the best guys that we have, we can possibly um, bootstrap this holacracy organization and make it worth our while.
We'll say we could just do those things now without it, though.
So
I
there's
could-
a middle
there's-
there's a middle ground that I
Yeah.
was going to speak to, which is like, we're talking about HiFiDo and all the cool things that they bring to the table, but really like there's a freaking spreadsheet that they have that is so cool. We just all got on that same page with the spreadsheet. I was trying to look it up right now. Anyway, there's some things we can just like grab piecemeal. We don't need to like adopt the entire thing and wait till it's all perfectly integrated and blah blah blah. They're just some like basic core concepts we can like look at and go, let's try this out. Let's try this way of managing roles and use our own fractal democracy approach to getting buy-in or whatever kind of quorum we need to advance things, or just like let the delegates just decide how it unfolds. Agreeing on how we agree to implement is kind of like the main thing. Or right now we're pretty much just in charge of budgets, but Dan has indicated that he wants us to be more policy focused as well. So I think there's a lot we could do that doesn't require us to like invest in a huge apparatus. We can just say, oh, we want to put people to work. Like what are tools that are helpful for managing people and roles? What's the simplest way for us to implement that in the context that we have? Like, let's just go run with it and not wait for like the whole package deal to be together.
Yeah, and like we could look into ideas, but yeah, like Aaron said, we'll really without our what do you call it? The foundation, the bylaws, and everything from Dan. We're essentially in beta at the moment. Like Eden is just beta stage still. We don't have the foundation. We're not fully in production. Like we got money, but we've got no platform on which to send it and stuff like that. So I'd say we should just do what we can with what we got, and we'll wait for the bylaws and everything to come through from Dan, because we've still got a court system coming in. So like if we implement DAOs and stuff like that, is that going to conflict with some of the court ideas? Like we have no idea. And for all we know at this stage, Dan's already ventured off into the ideas of how to approach these problems that we're talking about as well. With what we got now, we've got money, and if we wanted to, we can send our funds to where we to whatever project or whatever endeavor that we want. Yeah.
And I think it
Me
can
too.
still be fair, like we're doing with the website. Like we talked about how we make this process fair, and went extra steps instead of just like, I feel like that was a happy medium we reached. It wasn't we just, okay, we're gonna do it, here we go. It was, okay, let's put at least a little process on top of it and take in offers for people to be able to do this thing. And we obviously could have managed that project with something like Haifa. It's just, we need this now, and so we're going to do this now. There's probably other initiatives just like this that we could be doing as well. It's a matter of just identifying them and then again, us organizing to be able to do that. We wouldn't have a system in place, so it requires some administrative work, which kind of comes back full circle of it'd be nice to even have just people whose job it is to think about this.
Totally.
That's not why I ran for Eden. It wasn't so that I could work full time on Eden. My plate's full, but I want to see this succeed. So if we can figure out ways to make all of this happen, let's do it.
Agreed. Yeah, we're gonna need to get a little crew together to work on this. Is anyone here in this group that's now listening interested in helping to seed such an initiative? I'm curious, outside of the chief delegate team that's assembled here.
I'm interested in helping.
Mel?
Yep.
Oh, there you are. Cool. So we're just about 90 minutes into this. I know we started a little bit late. Some of us have other things we need to attend to. We wanted to not let this drag on for an infinity of time. Are there any other pressing questions? I'm curious. I'm going to scan the YouTube chat one more time.
Couple comments from Mo. He'd like to mention the 344 people in Eden getting a jobs board up and activating these people with whatever tasks they can take on shouldn't be too difficult. I think one of the main questions being asked is what to do. The memo is great, but if this is only for public goods, we may want to survey the community or Eden regarding projects that aren't public goods. They'd like to see us incubate, maybe. Good comments?
Yeah.
What another day with a proposal on Pomelo. Bit late now.
Well, there's more Pomelo seasons coming.
Yeah.
Just have to wait
Yeah.
2 months.
And I think that some of the things we need as Eden to make this experiment successful aren't public goods. So those are things we need to fund. Some of them are, like Eden itself is arguably a public good. But I think this specific instance of Eden is going to have things. Arguably, the website for this specific instance isn't a public good. It could go either way, depending on how you view it. So the point just being there's stuff like that, but there's also the opportunity for projects as well that aren't Eden specific.
Yeah, so maybe we can get the person who's going to be creating the website to have a job board with it. That's it, and we can post the jobs on there.
I would make those separate tasks. Like, let's just bite-sized chunks one at a time. We can link to them. But
yeah.
We can link to them. Yeah.
You can do bounties.
Yeah. Chris, is that something that we can do to see
Totally.
how much?
We start with the website, get it built, and then maybe concurrently do something else. I mean, it wouldn't take much to put it on a Notion board or something too, right? Like, it doesn't need to be overly fancy.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I've got
Totally.
EOSproject.io if there's any use.
I don't know if we need another domain, but
Yeah, it's either that or stick it on Eden OS.
you think Notion or just getting control of, not control of, but making use of our own domain would be ideal. Someone in the YouTube chat asked, what is the team's opinion on Helios? Anyone want to tackle that?
It's a good thing for the EOS ecosystem. Greatly
Yeah,
needed.
I'm super excited for Helios. I've been a kind of a fan of Brock for a while. He's kind of speaks so eloquently and he's so knowledgeable about the space. And I'm so grateful that he's here with us in the EOS community. Um, in terms of kind of the marketing side, he's like the ultimate guy, like for promotion and marketing of EOS. I remember the John Oliver episode of last week tonight that kind of put EOS on the map, and obviously that was Brock. So um, I was so excited when he announced, and that interview with Michael was like one of the best interviews in EOS, like in our history. That was such a great interview, and so yeah, love it.
To kind of add a critical eye to it, I don't know. Personally, I'm cautiously optimistic about Helios. I There's a high rate or a high chance of failure that they are not going to be able to do what they need to be able to do at this point. And the reason for that is because we need the public goods to exist before profitable ventures can be created on EOSIO. That, in my belief, is why EOS VC didn't really fund EOS projects, is because these technical teams, like, they were approached by EOS VC. They looked at EOS and they looked at competitors and they decided they'd be more successful if they went elsewhere. And that's because the infrastructure and the public goods they needed in those other ecosystems existed already and was being funded by the foundations of those ecosystems. So, and being a venture capital firm, when you say, I know you're an EOS VC, but if we go to X chain, we can make you more money, the VC firm is going to say, cool, do it. I need you to make me my money back. So it depends, like, if Helios can hold on and help fund the initiatives that are coming out of the public good initiatives that are going to be probably built over the next year, then I think Helios has a really good chance at successfully launching VC projects on EOS after that work's completed. So it's going to be a road before we see them being impactful in the ecosystem. I don't think you can propose a project today and successfully build it unless it's some very niche thing. We need more, and it's just been lacking for years. So the smart move with money, which obviously somebody who's going to be investing money this way is going to make the smart move, is to make sure the ecosystem's ready for the product. You don't go build a mall out in the middle of nowhere.
So I guess
Aaron,
anywhere right now.
go ahead, Chris.
I was just going to say, so I guess it would be good if we saw Helios do something in the public good domain first, probably because I'm assuming the people involved probably know exactly the point you're making. But I think there's a real strong commitment to EOS. So
Yeah.
I think in terms of what you're concerned about, I'm not as concerned because the people at Helios want to do this on EOS. That's their commitment. It's not just making money; it's making EOS awesome. So
Yeah.
I think you'll be. I think there's still room to be optimistic.
Yeah. And for me, I literally know nothing about what's going on with it. So I've watched this ecosystem and ecosystems like this before it, and I've watched this same thing unfold many times, and rarely is it successful. So I want it to succeed. My expectations tempered by experience are very low. I really do hope that Helios and the foundation can somehow work together on initiatives. Because if they start competing against each other, that's not going to work either.
No, I don't.
Yeah.
I don't think that'll happen.
I was going to ask Aaron if you had any thoughts about how Helios could best approach the work that's being done in order to create the infrastructure that's needed, the public goods side of things. Like if what you'd like to see that relationship be like.
it's a tough one right now. I mean, I would hope that, like, here's an ideal scenario maybe in my head, is that these working groups early next year publish awesome research papers, and they have dozens of like things that businesses need to successfully build on the chain, that maybe the foundation can't handle development of them all, that then something like Helios could step in and help, like, oh, we'll make sure a team is on building this thing, because then in the future they know they can leverage that to build a for-profit product. Yeah, I guess that in an ideal world is how it would play out, but that involves waiting, and I don't know if waiting is in the cards.
Yeah, it's an interesting problem with business in general, right? It's like the short-term profit model in general is it's like people would rather cut down a bunch of trees today than look at a longer term use of that same forest to generate maybe even more of a return. It's just the way that we tend to operate in these short time profit cycles because of the
Yeah.
quarterly view towards profit. But I guess maybe one like huge aligning point is just that if it comes to pass that this 45 million, I think it's 45 million that Brock has of EOS, that's a huge aligning incentive in terms of there's now an entity that wants to see those 45 million appreciate and will take a longer view of the infrastructure needed in order to build on a system that has that. So
Yeah, it's just a tall ask, especially when it's somebody's money, um, which these tokens are through this deal. Um, it, there's a lot of caveats with that statement, and we don't have to get into any of that.
yeah.
But it's also not that other VCs haven't looked at EOS this whole time. Like, we've we've had less visible entities that have looked at doing venture capital investments within the EOSIO ecosystem, and for whatever reason they turned it away. So I think there's going to be a lot of discovery that will need to come of it for that money to be used in intelligent ways and to be able to make him his money back, because ultimately that's what this is about.
So I have a question. You're like a unique person to answer, maybe that it's been bothering me for a while. Is like,
At all my hats.
yeah. Switch your hat. I got another
Okay.
question for you.
Which
Different
one?
hat. I don't know. You'll have to decide after
All
I
right.
ask.
All right.
So, like, to my mind, a lot of EOS's problems are perception based, because, I mean, and correct me if I'm wrong, but when you talk about VC looking at EOS and kind of deciding to go another direction, it's like always in the back of my mind, I think of people like Sudeep of Crypto Lions, who I have a lot of respect for, and who speaks very highly of EOSIO and EOS, and they developed Europe Chain and all these things. And I remember the interview that Chris did with him. He was like, "We've looked around and we haven't found anything better." So of course, it might be specific to what you're trying to achieve, but it's like I feel like Sudeep's not the only person I've heard make these comments. Like I feel like there's still a huge technical advantage in some dimensions of building on EOS versus several other projects I could name that have super high fees and are really slow and yada yada yada. So to what, like, how do you reconcile these things?
I think I'd agree with that statement. I mean, it's the reason my team is still here. Um, we work here because we see this platform as one of the best in the industry, overall, in specific aspects. Like, it's like we have this incredibly solid foundation built in the most earthquake-prone area of the world that's perfectly set up to build a house on, but we haven't built the house yet. And we're all itching to build this house, but it's just not there yet. And then, like the problems you've talked about on these other chains, they've built great houses on top of really shaky foundations that are now falling apart. Um, with the fees, like they've hit saturation points now where the fee market has kicked in, and now you're paying hundreds and hundreds of dollars in fees. And if your transaction fails on some of these chains, you don't get the fee back. Like there's a lot of real bad downsides on some of the other chains that see a ton more activity and houses being built on them.
Mhm.
We've just never had the tools or the opportunity to actually build those things on EOS. And I think that's why a lot of us have stuck around in the EOSIO ecosystem, is because those statements aren't untrue. Like EOSIO is absolutely one of the best technology stacks out there. It's just not finished. And so, I mean, that's where a lot of the frustration comes from towards block.one. It's like, why isn't this finished? Why aren't you promoting a whole bunch of people to help you build this thing? And then there's a lot of the uh, I forget what word you used, it was the basically FUD, where people really look negatively towards EOS for,
Mhm.
and they find really weird reasons to dislike it. And that kind of drives people away too. But when it comes to somebody who just wants to build a profit for product, if they have to figure out how to create all of the components of their house before they can build it, they might go with a more shaky foundation just because they want the house right now.
What sort of like okay, given that the foundation is very solid and the tooling for house building is maybe incomplete, um, and I know the working groups are a big part of solving that those very issues. What would you say like are the low hanging fruit in terms of like if you were going to show up and build an enterprise application to run on EOS, like given the tools that do exist now, like what are some areas where, um, like if you were going to promote development on EOS now, given like the current infrastructure that we have and the tools that we have, like what would be some of the areas that where you could get some quick wins in that aren't requiring a developer to wait for the tools to be perfect? Is there such a a niche like within the EOS IO or EOS ecosystem?
Kind of. I mean, there's some like we as in Gray Mass just put out the account creation systems and offered in-app purchases, and like I've been working on making onboarding that much easier this year, and we're in
Hmm.
year 3 going on 4 right now. And it's like that type of stuff with more than like 2 or 3 people working on it at any given point could have been accelerated much faster. Um, it's delivering these types of things out to the applications that people want to build. That's the really hard part in my mind right now. Whether it's like I mentioned, account creation, whether it's providing resources, because resources on EOS we may understand to varying degrees, but they're really hard for most people. Even crypto people that are familiar with crypto, and they're just like, well, I just normally pay a fee, and they're fine with that. We have these very complex systems that require you to jump through hoops to use the network. There's the one of the not so stable foundations we have too is the web frameworks that EOS has. Like EOS.js was built arguably before EOS launched, and then there was a 2.0 within maybe the first 6 months to a year, I think. Um, and then it just kind of stopped, but it didn't evolve with the network. So like that needs to be replaced. Um, I mean, I could keep going on. There are so many minute little areas where if attention were applied, maybe 1 or 2 people working on this for months, um, we could end up with a really strong support system that helps people build these apps. And I think that's, with my involvement in the working group, that's the kind of things I want to look at. That's kind of what I'm emphasizing in that work. because I want for next year for this stuff to be built, and then we can have successful businesses being built again without all the frustration we have today if you were trying to do it today. I don't know if that answers your
Gotcha.
question.
Oh yeah. I mean, I'm just like, there's like an awkward middle stage that we're going to have to cross no matter what. And
Yeah.
because we need to turn sentiment around in order to do a lot of things. And somebody in the Google chat made a great comment, which I really love. I'm just going to read it, even if it's not politically correct, perhaps. Extra Dext, no blockchain is finished. EOS needs momentum. It needs to be the lady you want, not the lady you need. I like that. It's just like, yeah, I mean, there's a certain, yeah, like I just said already, like, a lot of other blockchains have done so much more in terms of network effect and adoption with very little. And Aaron, you point to like the fact that they made it a priority to be able to build the houses on the shaky foundation. But yeah, maybe there's a middle ground to be found. I know we're pretty far along in
It's also
time. Go
knowledge
ahead.
is power. I was just going to say, just on this last, just to close up here, like from Helios' point of view, for example, recognizing that, so that the statement that we need a year to build more foundation before we can do anything, Helios could do anything as a VC. That's not true, because there's lots of things that could be done that as long as there's knowledge of what dependencies are missing or what are coming, or like it's the collaborative nature, right? So like ENF is identifying all of these holes, which are amazing. So it's not amazing there's holes, but it's amazing they're being identified. So if Helios is looking to build businesses, there's time. That takes time too, right? So this is where the collaborative nature is going to be so key, because Helios can be aware of what is being worked on and support that potentially as well, and then consider that into the roadmap of any businesses and infrastructure that, or whatever the businesses might be, projects that are getting built. And there's also just things that could be built that aren't going to have issues with the current deficiencies, the things that can still get built that can overcome and work around those problems. So I still think there's an opportunity for things to happen sooner than later, just with proper communication, coordination, and just working together.
So,
but also
forward
businesses
to
would
that.
have to trust that Helios does, deliver on the promises, and the ENF does, on their working groups and stuff like that. There's still ifs around there, and then compared to Ethereum, where you've got a greater network effect as well.
Yeah, well, if Helios is here to fund you, I guess as a business you could be like, no, I don't want your money. I'll go somewhere else. Sure, that's a legit. But a founder who's coming looking for an ecosystem to grow on, and someone's going to give you money to do it. I mean, I don't know, gift horse in the mouth type of moment.
Yeah. Well, and I think an important thing to realize is that when we're trying to improve the system, whether it's the ENF or Helios or any organization in here, some of these entities are going to fail on specific things. And then that's going to drag it out a little bit. So when I'm saying, specific timelines, I'm kind of anticipating failure because we don't know exactly what the perfect solution is just yet. I mean, there's a lot of people that don't like how Power Up works right now, and that is a very recent solution that was deployed onto EOS. It doesn't fit everybody's needs. So in some ways it is a failure, and in some ways it's really successful. We just haven't seen it all play out yet. But I do hope what you were describing, Chris, is how things move forward and proceed. I mean, I really look forward to being able to link up, take on another hat, and talk Helios with people once that's a thing to be able to talk about.
Yeah,
Totally. Yeah, I appreciate your optimistic perspective, Chris, and I appreciate your cautiously optimistic perspective too, Aaron. That's usually my category. I'm like, oh, I've seen some shit go down. I don't know, but maybe it'll work out.
It's been a while since I've been hopeful.
Aw, damn. Gotta
Yeah.
get someone give Aaron a hug. Can't get to him from here, but
No,
a hat,
He's too intimidating with that beard.
a mug of hot chocolate, and a hug.
give it a trim then. I'll braid it or something. I don't know.
Yeah, braid it. Go Viking on us.
Right?
I'm slowly catching up with you. You can't tell yet, but it's happening.
Need a real-time cam on that.
Yeah. All right. Well, should we wrap her up for this edition? Anyone else? Parting thoughts? Closing thoughts?
No mention about bullish.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I'm not one of the institutions that gets to play in there today, so I'm nothing to see here, folks. Just
Yeah.
yeah, that was the announcement this morning, though. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's at least they've released it.
Yeah. I mean, I hope we get more information from what that what that looks like. Like who's in there kicking I want to know who's kicking the tires. Like, let us in on some of these large institutional players that are kicking the tires in there, so we can. And then somebody asked the question like right away in chat, and they might be listening right now. Like, where is the hash to mainnet? Is it happening? Could you point it out? And I haven't seen an answer to that yet. So
Yeah, Brendan answered it earlier
did?
that it's happening when it's fully launched, and they announced 2 institutions that they're starting with. I can't remember the names, but
Cool.
man, where did I read that? Somewhere.
I think I saw
It's
it
out
on
there
Twitter.
somewhere.
I'm gonna bite my tongue. All right. Well, Jesse, please share that news with us when you find it, or anyone else that does, and go
Yeah, we'll do.
EOS.
I can't wait to use
EOS.
me Yubi key.
Yeah, right, Mel.
I've got it in my drawer ready to go.
I've got my YubiKey right here. I'm ready.
Are you
Boom.
guys using it for other sites? You can use it for your Facebook and crap like that.
It's in there
Right.
somewhere. Buried in my drawer.
I'm just bummed I didn't get USB-C and got the old school. But maybe my new computer will have this. Because I'm switching to Linux. Suckers.
Good idea.
Yeah, seriously. Cool, guys. Let's do it. Let's say adios. If people want to keep chatting in the room, I guess we could do that. But is Yana still with us? You wanna? I don't know how you wrap this thing up. I'm a noob at the Discord thing.
I'm still here, guys. Nice show. Yeah, so I can stop it, but I was expecting kind of a bye-bye, go EOS, whatever.
Yeah, it's a little
One,
bit flat. A little bit
2, 3, go,
Go
EOS!
Bye-bye.
There you go.